Greetings everyone. In this video we're going to introduce and show off the new Realtrac RightBoard product. This software is designed to quickly and easily plan the day-to-day production plans for your manufacturing facility and communicate this information out to your shop floor employees. On the screen right now we've got a sample RightBoard display. We'll go over the setup and best practices shortly, but let me give you a quick introduction. Right now we're looking at a grid of a few of the workstations on my shop floor. I am simultaneously looking at the real-time data on what my employees are doing, but at the same time I can also use this tool to plan the next operations for each of my operators and stations. Using our operation pool, or op pool, I am able to drag and drop operations, assign them to specific stations, and I can rearrange the order of operations based on the needs of my floor in real time. This tool is super easy to use and set up and has already made a tremendous positive impact at the shops where we've deployed it. Let's dig in and see how it works. Before firing up the RightBoard, I want to introduce our idea of tagging work centers. This concept will come into play in a minute when we start building our first RightBoard display. Within the Realtrac Performance ERP system, a work center is a collection of similar workstations. So if we have a group of saws that have similar performance characteristics, we join those stations together into a common work center. We received feedback from customers that wanted a method to group our work centers together. A user may wish to bundle all their saws, regardless of size, together into a saw department. Similarly, many shop and floor managers will cluster machines together on the floor such that they follow a typical flow for a part that they're producing. Users may want to bundle these machines together based on their location, such as the north wing versus the south wing, or if a site has multiple buildings. To help with this idea, we introduced the concept of tagging work centers. If I pull up my work center list, you'll see over here we have a tag column. I've decided to tag and group together my various lathe work centers. In addition, in the southern part of my building, I've got my shipping and receiving department set up. So I've decided to bundle those together with the south tag. When we pop over to our RightBoard display, we're going to filter our stations using these tags. This is going to make it real easy for me to put a RightBoard display up in the southern part of my facility and give real-time directions to all my employees in that part of the building. While we're here in the System Settings group within our Realtrac client, I'll take a quick trip over to our Employee tab. When I select my name, you'll see over here in our Permissions box, we now have a permission titled Allow Changes to RightBoard. Using the RightBoard requires a user to log in using their existing Realtrac login. Since a floor user of the RightBoard has the power to significantly change the operations running on your floor, we want to limit the write ability to folks that need it and log in our remote displays with read-only privileges. We'll talk about that more in a minute. Okay, so I've just run the RightBoard for the first time. As you'll notice, I'll be asked to log in, at which point my system will communicate with our server to see if I'm allowed to make changes to the stations or merely view them. My initial setup here is pretty easy. My first step is to define which stations I want to see on my RightBoard display. To get started, I'll click on the Department Groups menu and select New. I'm presented with an interface to select my workstations from my list. But since we spent the time to check out these tags with my work centers, let me try searching by work center tag. When I type in south, we'll see my selections are immediately narrowed. The system is presenting me only the stations that are associated with work centers with the south tag that we saw earlier. I'm going to select a handful of my stations, assign this group a new name, and then accept them and check out my new RightBoard grid. Alright, right away you can see we've got some information on our display. Along the top, we see a few employees that are currently logged in to operations. The top line of our grid will always display our active operation, while the cells below are our plans for what we want to run through the station next. When an employee logs out but doesn't close the operation, we will keep the operation in the top cell grayed out, assuming the operator will be logging back in when they return, like the next day. Let's start planning out the next jobs and operations I want my operators to work on next. First, I need to pull up our op pool. The op pool shows us the operations that are assigned to any of the work centers associated with the stations I'm showing on my screen. In order to access the op pool, I'm going to click on this arrow on the left side of my grid, and we can see it pops right in. On this initial screen, you can see we're showing operations that are queued, meaning the job is waiting on the operation to continue, or pending. In the Realtrac world, a pending operation is an operation that's one step away from being queued. Using the checkboxes, we can always adjust which operations we'll see on the list, and we can always use the Realtrac search technologies to search for specific jobs or parts. We order the op pool list by putting the queued operations first, pending second, and then distant third. That's assuming the user has chosen to show all three categories using our checkboxes here. Then within each category, we order the operations by the job's on-time value, meaning where we are with respect to the due date for the job. Any jobs that are overdue will have the highest priority, and those may be something we want to address promptly using the RightBoard. From our display here, we can actually see we have few jobs whose production has actually slipped, so we probably want to address that situation immediately. I'm going to click to select the operation and then drag it to a specific workstation to assign it. Note as I drag my operation that the background of my cell switches between green and red. Green indicates that the station we're on is a member of the work center that the jobs router is currently assigned to. The RightBoard allows you to override the jobs router and based on your capacity, change around assignments. We'll cover that more in depth in a second. Let's set up a few more ops to get our floor folks ready for the rest of the day. I'm going to continue to look over my jobs and evaluate my priorities, dragging and dropping the ops onto my cells quickly and easily. Just stepping back for a second, hopefully the picture of the sort of control you can have over your floor is becoming clear. I cannot possibly share with you all the ways in which our users have already taken this tool and started using it in their own ways. We find all shops run their floor a little differently, and every shop we've introduced this tool in has adopted it as using it currently. I'm just showing one of the more straightforward ways to use this tool on your floor, but hopefully once you get your hands on it, you'll be able to adapt it and it'll help solve some real problems in your shop. Okay, let's give one other example of using the RightBoard to try to push an expedited job through my system. I am going to open up our job group and quickly whip together a hot new job. I'm going to make my job here really quickly, flip over to my router, and build a real simple router. I'm going to program this job to make stops at 3 work centers, a lathe, a saw, and a mill. We'll give each of these operations some expected time, and once we're all set, we'll pop back over to our job order entry form, set a due date for the future, and schedule this job. I'm also going to make sure this job is marked as being expedited because it just came in and it's a hot job and I want this to get pushed through our system. All right, our job is built and scheduled. Let's start pushing it through using the RightBoard. Right away from looking at the board, I can see one of my lathes is currently open. So I see a location where I can tell my team to kick this job off right away. I'm going to pull up my op pool and search for my new job number. We can see the op pool immediately narrows my operations to just this job. And I'd also like to point out how we have a little green dot on the operations for this job, signifying to the team that this is actually an expedited job. I'm going to go ahead and pull my lathe operation over to my currently open lathe, signaling to my employee manning that lathe that I want them to log into this operation next. If we wait a moment, through the power of pre-planned video magic, we may actually see this operation pop into our queued active row up top. And there we go. All right, my employee operator is now getting to work setting up their lathe and getting to work on my hot parts. Okay, let me prepare the next few steps. I know after the lathe, I'm going to take my pieces over to the saw. On my department screen, I can pick which station I feel is best suited. While I could just randomly assign the operation to any of my saws, I want to use the RightBoard to help me decide where I should put this. Looking over the current operations, I get a good amount of information when I hover over each of these cells. Looking at this specific operation on one of my saws, I can see we've already completed most of the pieces. And without having to go on the floor, walk, and ask my operator, I can deduce that this station is going to be available relatively soon. So I'm going to drag our next operation, Op 20, to this station here, overriding what I had previously assigned to them. When my operator of that station logs out, they can now look up at the RightBoard in their area of the building and know immediately the next parts they're going to run at their station. They can already begin preparing their station for the pieces of our hot job that's just coming off the drill. I'm going to repeat this process for our final operation, Op 30, going through a milling station. And there we have it. I've pushed this job through as quickly as possible. When each station opens up, the best station that I have available to me, will be able to log right in and get this job pushed right through. At this point, hopefully it's clear to see how this ability to react in real time and keep everyone informed can be a boon for your shop. We all know manufacturing floors, especially in a job shop environment, are very dynamic. Not only can hot orders come in, but people will get sick, machines will break down, and the only constant you can rely on is the unexpected. Having a tool for your overworked floor or production manager to immediately signal this is the new plan to your floor without having to stop and call a meeting will save you time and money. But we knew with all this great information we had, we could automate some other Realtrac systems as well. In addition to seeing this information in real time on the RightBoard display, we've tied your RightBoard data and the decisions you make back into the shop floor client, the interface to your employees. With this information, Realtrac can automatically guide your employees to logging into the next job that you've decided they should log into. So let's take a look at an example. Right now, this employee here is currently logged into a job in operation. I want to use the system to tell them which job I want them to log in next. I pull up my op pool, find the operation I need them to work on, and drag it over to the top line right below my queued active here on the RightBoard. With this simple process complete, let's switch over to the shop floor interface and see what happens for our employee. Using the shop floor interface, our employee logs out of their current operation and notes the good pieces they've completed and closes out the operation. When our employee here decides to log in for their next operation, Realtrac already knows what the operation the floor manager wants them to use. You can see here that the job, operation, and even their station are already pre-selected for our employee. They are capable of changing it and selecting a different job, but in most situations, everything is already preset for our employees. They can click their name, click login, and away they go. Less mistakes, less time, less money out of your pocket, more money in your bank account, and quicker shipments. Realtrac also offers the option for the production manager to actually change and update the job's router in real time right from the RightBoard. Let's take a look at a scenario when this may be useful. As we touched upon earlier, I have a number of lathe work centers. Typically, I want to run my parts on the smallest, cheapest lathe I can in order to save my hard-earned dollars and keep my costs down. But on the other hand, if I've got parts that need to run and I've got a lathe sitting idle, it only makes sense to start using it. Once again, I've got my RightBoard interface up and loaded. I'm currently looking at both my south department as well as my lathe department. You can run as many grids simultaneously as your displays can handle. We even have a customer with 6 widescreen monitors hooked up, all showing real-time RightBoard information. Please remember that within my lathe department, I'm looking at all of my lathes, small, medium, and large. We can see I've got a bit of a backup in regards to my small lathe. Let's reassign an operation to a larger lathe so we can get that operation kicked off on our floor. Unlike before, I'm going to drag my operation onto a cell with a red background, which is warning me that I'm deviating from my router. When I let go, Realtrac is confirming with me that I've chosen a different work center, and it even goes so far as to ask me if I wish to change the router on the job itself. If and when we say yes, Realtrac will automatically change the router, And it even goes so far as to reschedule a job and change the loading in terms of our work centers. All this happens in real time, real fast. Really cool stuff. Well, this is just the tip of the iceberg of what the RightBoard can do for you and your shop. Please give us a call and let us know if you'd like to try out the RightBoard yourself. If you're already an existing customer, this is a tool we can let you try out for a while. And of course, if you're not yet a Realtrac customer, we would absolutely love to hear from you. Please let us know if you have any questions or comments. We'd love to have the Realtrac Performance ERP help you win the business race.